Hello there, my lovely jewelry makers. I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to use a 4-strand braid in a wirework bracelet and also incorporating beads into it in a bit of a different way to achieve an interesting look. Now I chose to go for some quite colourful bracelets to really make the effect stand out, but of course you can achieve whatever kind of look that you want. Now it's a pretty simple technique and I'm going to show you a couple of different variations of it so you can achieve some different looks using that same basic technique, and it's especially great if you're just getting started. And I'd love to hear from you in the comment section down below which one is your favourite, and if you have any ideas for any other variations of this as well. And if you do decide to make these, I would love to see them, so what you can do is tag me on social media. Links to the ones that I'm on is down in the description box below. And these bracelets will also be available in my Etsy shop. Now if you want to learn how to make them, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to need. Now the wire that I'm using is a 1mm regular round silver coated copper wire, and we're making the braid with this wire here. And then the beads that we need are these 4mm rounds here. Now I've chosen to combine two different kinds of beads, but you can either choose to do that or just choose to use one. That's completely up to you and the look that you want. And the specific ones that I'm using are first of all some blue coated hematite gemstone rounds, and then here I'm using some copper metal spacer beads. But regardless what beads that you are using, just make sure the holes are large enough for your wire to go through. If you do struggle finding beads where you can get this 1mm wire through, you can always take the wire down to a 0.8mm. And then we'll just need our findings as well. So I've got my lobster claw clasp and extender chain, and then jump rings to put it together. Of course you can use whatever kind of clasp that you prefer or even make your own. So make sure to check out the description box below the video. I'm going to have the material list and links as well. Otherwise, let's get all the materials ready and let's get started. And then we need to cut some lengths of our wire. So what I have here is 4 lengths of about 40 centimeters each, and make sure they're nice and smooth. And then what I've done is on the end I put them into a spring clamp like this, and I've just left a little tail about 7 centimeters or so because we're going to use that to finish off the ends with. So then we need to get straight into our braid, and then what I'm going to do is start right after where my spring clamp is, so work with the long ends here, and we're going to be making a basic 4-strand braid and then just adding beads in certain places along the way. So I'm just going to start doing 1 or 2 stitches here though. Just want to separate the wires out a little bit. 2 to kind of either side there, and then I'm going to start from the outsides. I'm just going to take my right one first of all, that I'm going to bring over the next one into the middle, something a bit like this, and then the furthest left one I'm going to bring underneath the next one and into the middle, and then straight away, because we have this one from the opposite side, I'm going to bring it over that and then also into the middle. And then they cross over here and it looks a little something like this, and this is basically 1 stitch, and we're going to keep doing this throughout. This is the basic principle of the braid itself. And then what I also like to do as I'm working with my wires, every time I've kind of made a stitch, I like to smooth out the wires because they probably get a bit shaped after the warmth of your hands as you're working with them. So just also to be able to get the beads on there as we go. But then the next one, do the same thing. Just going to do another one here. Take the right one, furthest right one, goes over the next one in and into the middle, and then the furthest left one goes underneath the next one and then over the one that's already in the middle and then into the middle as well, but they're basically swapping sides as we do this as well. And then you can just take your time, maneuver your wire however you need to while you're in this area before moving on until you're happy with how it looks. And smooth out the wires, and then you can start to see the braid forming here. So this is the basic principle of the braid, like I said. And then I've done 2 stitches now. I'm just going to leave it at that. There's no need to do too much because we're just going to use this end to finish off the braid with anyway. So now what I want to do is start adding in my beads as well. So I'm then getting some of my beads ready here, and what I'm going to do is just take one at a time because we need to then start feeding them onto the lengths of wire as well. So it doesn't matter what side you start on. I'm just going to add my left one first. So I have the 2, the outer one and then the inner one of those 2 on the left side. I'm going to add my bead to the inner one. So just get it on to your wire and then push it all the way up. Then what I'm going to do is push the bead underneath the other wire that's crossing over it, so it slots into that little space. Then I'm going to take another bead, and then on the other side, again we have the outer one, and then we have the inner one. I'm going to put this on the inner one as well. And then push that all the way up as well, and that then just gets pushed over the other wire. So again, that also slots into the little area we have. And then also what's going to happen is the beads are going to help with the spacing in the braid, also help make it nice and even. And then just push them as far as they'll go, but obviously without pushing them any further than these outer two wires there. So they sit in between them just like that. And kind of pull the wires apart from each other to get them nice and tight. Then we need to add some more. We kind of add our beads in sets of 4. And I'm going to add this one on the left side to the same wire as before, but now I'm going to leave it on this side of the other wire that's crossing over. And then the 4th bead, I'm going to again add to the same one on the right side. If I can find the hole there. And then also let that drop all the way down, but again staying on this side. So kind of the open side. These can fall off, so just make sure you keep pushing them up. And then we kind of have a little square there of the 4 beads. Now from the back, I like to put my finger behind all these beads and also on top with my thumb and kind of keep them in place there. So we now need to start moving the wires again, and we're going to keep going with the same braid structure. So I just start with my furthest right wire, bring that over the next one in, into the middle, and then that comes around these beads, the side of them, and kind of shapes a bit of a curve there. And then as you have that, I'm going to swap hands, and on this side, the outer one goes underneath the next one in, into the middle, but come over the one that's already in the middle from the opposite side there. And again, that curves around this side of the beads. Make sure you push them up as much as you can so they kind of keep that shape. And also these two wires are now crossing in the middle. And again, make sure while we're here, just that you're happy with how everything sits before we move on. Because now is when you'd want to fix anything that you're not happy with. So something like that. And then these wires that were moved around the beads are basically trapping them in place and staying in this little shape. So then for the next movement, making sure it's all as tight as possible. Then I'm going to do another stitch, but now without beads. So I'm just going to take the furthest right one, bring that over into the middle. And then the furthest left one goes under into the middle and over that one that's already in the middle from the opposite side. And then the crossover there again. And that's another stitch. You can see the basic, same 4-strand braid. One section we just added beads in, and then we skipped a section. And we just used the wire. And now the next section here again, I want to start adding beads again, and again the sets of 4. So to show you that one more time, in this case I'm going to just swap up the beads that I'm using, but otherwise it's the exact same. So we need to add them so we get this little kind of square that we've got going on. So that means I add my bead to the inner wire of the 2 on the side, and then the same with the 2 wires on the other side. Also add that bead to the inner one of the 2 and push them up so they get trapped above that little crossover point. And then we just add another one to the same wire on either side. And now leaving them below the cross. So we end up with this little shape that we have going on. Make sure you push them all the way up so they're sitting and staying in that shape. Now take the furthest right wire, bring that over into the middle. So basically we just do another stitch again. So this wire comes around the side of the beads and also starts to cage them in and trap them in place. The furthest left one goes under and over. And then you just take a bit of time and maneuver everything in place until you're happy with how it looks. And then that's another stitch and another set of beads added in there. And you can see another technique. We're just going to keep alternating like this throughout. So now the next round I'm going to do is just one with just the wire. So that's that little gap between the sections of the beads. But otherwise you just keep going like this. So I then made the length of braid that I need here, bearing in mind the clasp is going to add some length as well. Then what we need to do is finish off the ends. So what I'm going to be doing is making a wrapped loop on either end that we can then attach the clasp to. And where I've finished on my braid is after that last section of bead, I've made one more stitch. So I have my 2 wires there in the middle crossing over. I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and we're going to start with those 2 middle wires. So I'm just going to pick one of them, just picking the back one here. And then right at that crossover point, I'm going to put my pliers onto that back wire and then just put a bend into it and have it come straight up, basically from out from the end of the braid there, so it looks a little something like that. And then what I'm going to do is, when I'm happy with that bend, I'm going to take the other length out of those 2 middle ones and we need to wrap that around the one that we just bent. So I'm just going to continue in this direction. It's coming across the front of it. I'm going to then continue wrapping it around the back and right down where I made that bend. And we just wrap it a few times here. If you need to use your pliers, because it's a bit thick wire this, to help maneuver it into exactly where you want it to sit. So we're basically making some wraps now so it becomes nice and secure. Need to tighten that a little bit with my pliers. So wrap it around a few times here. Just something a bit like this, doesn't have to be too much more. 2 to 3 times is fine. So there we go. Then I want to cut off the excess, because this is now secure enough that we can do that. So where I have that final wrap, I'm going to go in, take my flush cutters and then cut off the excess there. And then take chain nails again, because I want to make sure, if you put your finger over it, you can feel it sticking out. So make sure you just squeeze that down so it's not going to irritate your skin. And also that your wraps are nice and tight there. Something a bit like that. Now what we have left are these other 2 lengths. So with them, we also need to start wrapping them. So this right one here, looking at this direction, is coming over the top of the previous crossover point. So I'm going to bring that around the side of the wraps that I've just done, and then below the wire sticking straight out of the end, and just over to the opposite side. And then the wire from the left side here is coming from underneath. Then just going to bring that around the side of the wraps and bring it over to the opposite side, just like that. Then now what I want to do is start wrapping these 2 around that straight wire at the same time, kind of simultaneously here. You can just do one at a time, move it a little bit and then go to the other one and move that a little bit, until again we wrap these a few times so they're nice and secure. Something like that should be fine. And again, so they're coming out to straight opposite each other. So something like that. And then with them, I'm also just going to take my flush cutters, cut off the excess. Same with the other one. And then make sure again that we just squeeze them down. Nicely against the wire, so we can't really feel any ends of wires sticking out there. So now that's all the wires kind of gotten rid of, except for this middle one, because this one is the one we're going to use to make the wrap loop with. So to do that, I'm going to again take my chain nose pliers. I'm going to put my piece to the side, and then I want to go up a little bit from the final wrap there that I did. Just leave a space of a few millimeters between the final wrap and my pliers, and then put in a bend about 90-degree angle, something like that. Then in this case here, I'm going to use my 6-step bell making pliers, but you can also use round nose pliers. I just like using these because I know exactly what size loop I'm going to get. And I can use the same size on both ends as well to make them the same. Then I'm going to take the long end, bring it back around my pliers, all the way around, so we end up with a full circle like that. Take my chainers again, put them onto that circle so it keeps its shape, and then just use this tail to wrap below it to kind of secure it in place, but then also fill in this gap that we left until this wire basically meets up with the other wraps and we haven't got any more space to wrap here. Just bring it around. Yep, it's time to then cut off the excess like that. Put that out of the way, and then again make sure we just squeeze that end down. Whenever you do that, make sure to run your fingers over them so it's not going to catch on your skin or your clothes. And then there you have the end finished off. And of course you just want to do the exact same thing on the other end as well, and you can then use this loop here to attach whatever findings that you want to. So I now finished off both ends here, and I've also attached my findings, so my extended chain, lobster claw clasp, and all this I have to do is shape it. So you can either shape it around something that has a size and shape you want it to have, like a bracelet mandrel, or you can just use your hands and fingers. So what I'm going to do is go into one place and start putting a curve into it. You don't want to go in and put a big bend into it, that's going to put it out of shape. We're just going to put gradually more and more of a curve, going back and forth from side to side. Just like this, you can see, and then the aim is to bring the two ends close together so we can obviously use the clasp. And then it's ready to wear, and it looks a little something like this. So you can see all we're doing is a basic 4-strand braid, so basic technique there, nice and easy, but then because we're adding the beads in a certain way, it gives a really different and interesting effect, and of course you can mix up your beads however you want to. Now I also just wanted to show you how to make a variation of it. So I've already started out my next piece here, so I initially made a couple of stitches and then I've added in my first section of the 4 beads in the middle there. Then I'm just going to kind of trap them in place by bringing the wires, outside wires, into the middle. Just the exact same technique as I showed you before so far. So we're doing the stitches in the same way. Get these into the middle, cross them over there. Now these beads are trapped in this little area, in the position where I want them to sit. And now this is where the variation is a little bit different. So we're still doing the same basic technique, so the braid, but instead of just now making a stitch with no bead, what I'm actually going to do is add beads in, but in a different way. So I'm going to add, before moving on, a bead to the outside wire, and then also one to the outside wire on the other side. And obviously you can use the same beads, you can use contrasting beads, it's completely up to you. And then I'm going to do my next stitch, making sure that I keep those pushed all the way up. Bring the right one over into the middle. And then the left one under. And then over. And end up in the middle. And then pull your wires tight. So these beads now get trapped basically on the outside edge. And smooth out your wires again, make sure everything sits how you want it to sit, and this adds a little bit of a different touch to it. And obviously here, because I'm using then the copper beads on the outside there, it's a nice contrast to those purple beads, so it still kind of separates out those individual sections. So you can just keep going like this. The next section you would do would be to add in this section of 4 beads in the middle, which is exactly what I showed you before. So now that I've completed this braid, you can see what a different effect we get just by adding those extra few beads in between the other sections. And then all I have to do is finish off the ends in the exact same way that I showed you already, and also shape the bracelet and attach your findings obviously. So I now finished my bracelets, and this is what they look like. So I chose to make 3 variations here to show you how different they can look, but using the same simple technique. And I'm sure you can achieve even more different variations by playing around with the design. Now I hope you enjoyed learning how to make these braided wire bracelets. Don't forget they'll be available in my Etsy shop along with other things as well. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.